Live. There we are.
So Alec Uwecki is losing his mind right now, and I think it's fair to say that a lot of us on the show right now are losing our minds over fantasy football, but for separate reasons. So I guess the question that I would ask you first, Will Mosley, is who do we want to start with first? Why Alec Uwecki is completely, entirely going insane over fantasy football, or why I'm going entirely insane over fantasy football? Where do you want to start?
See, yours is a long-standing beef with fantasy football that has so much history. I think we need to dive into it.
Okay,
let's let Alec cook for a little bit.
Okay,
let's hear where you're at.
Alec, you've been on your phone since I got on, for sure, and your face hasn't left it. And so what's going on right now with the Friends of the Show League? Can we get an update?
So the Friends of the Show League is as far as we're gonna have to start a new Friends of the Show League.
So we're killing off a league that is about to go to draft here in 9 minutes, right? We're just gonna let that sort of
that's what I'm trying to figure out how to do right.
So that league's going to sort of exist out in space forever and, not really be used, right?
Yeah, unless somebody decides to draft. I think that'd be hilarious if somebody doesn't get my text and joins and drafts.
See, okay. I was about to say, I'm still in the draft.
So
right now, I might just win that league just to, pump up my self-esteem a little bit.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be even worse if you still didn't win that league? Someone could just auto-draft.
Most likely chance.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's something that we should get into also. But, all right, so, Alec, how many people do we have for the league right now that are 100%? Us four, obviously, and then how many others?
We have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4.
This is good radio
5.
here.
My brother just said yes.
Okay, so
we have 5 friends and a brother between the 4 co-hosts on this podcast.
It's awesome, man. Right? I think it's that we need to really step back here and have a moment and recognize that this is probably more difficult than it should be. But that's not entirely fair. There are other people out there who are interested, but they can't do it for various reasons, right? My brother's in Croatia right now, which is, sort of jealous of that. But there were other people that I had reach out to me. I, just sort of didn't know. So anyway, we're in the middle right now of trying to figure out the situation with the Friends of the Show League. And is it fair to say at this point, Alec, that we're not sure that we know when the draft's going to be?
It's going to be tomorrow.
Okay.
Would be my,
okay. So either way, some part of us is going to do some type of recording during that draft. That's going to happen regardless of sort of what happens tonight, right? I mean, at least I know that I'm willing to do that. And I know there are others that are willing to do that also. It just seems like tomorrow will work better. It'll give everyone time to prepare if they want to prepare, or you can just sort of be like me and, not prepare because it's kind of random. Mac?
Yeah, I think tomorrow's the better decision just because we had so many messages come through our email, our Twitter, our Facebook of all these fans just chirping in, wanting to be a part of this league, and we just had to read through all of them and pick the best ones. It just took so long. We couldn't figure out who we wanted for our league, and we're just now pulling it together, and it was a little too late.
You mean sarcastic right now?
So tentative time. Tentative time.
Late.
Tuesday at 8:45.
That's fine. Don't make it tentative. Just say that's what it is and put it in the message. Because when you make it tentative, that's when you allow people to sort of debate, and that's when you end up with some that are in but not really in. So let's just make that the time. Let's decide if we're going to have 10 or 12 people, and we'll just move forward. It seems like we have 10 at least right now. So I say we find 12 within the next hour, that's fine. But if not, we roll with 10 this season.
That works. So for you out there listening at home, we are either probably in the draft or drafted last night.
You're too late.
I just
8:45, and it's going to be a phenomenal league. And you missed out on version 1 and 2 if you're just now listening on these airwaves.
Version 2 was just stuck into the group me. So
just like that, a new league is born.
Will, is fantasy football driving you insane yet?
It's close to it, man. It's close to it. There's so much on the line between pride and in some leagues here and there, for some people money, and for others humiliation if you choose to degrade yourself into it and you're bad at it. So yeah, man, it's a stressful time of the season if you decide to do this to yourself.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad you brought that up. How do you feel about humiliation and its relationship with fantasy football?
It should. It has a very delicate place in fantasy football.
Details, please.
I mean, there's subtle humiliation that goes along with everything, man. If just stuff happens, you get roasted, but it's when it goes too far and all these drastic things about doing all of these things just because you lose a random league that go a bit far for some people. And maybe that's all in for some people, but I like the good old just public humiliation of roasting.
Mac Young, how do you feel about it?
I'll pretty much speak on the same as Will. On most of the things that have been texted in our message board, as far as possible last place trophies, I am not a fan of almost any of them except for a few that I'm willing to do, which aren't really demoralizing at all. It's more like take the winner out to dinner or buy him a cup of coffee or something like that. I would do that. I will not put a huge Trump sticker on my car or some of the other ones that were on there.
Okay, so quick background here. 3 of us play in this other league, and last year they wanted to do this last place punishment. And at the time, I was like not having it and didn't want to do it. And I still don't want to do it. But last year I did end up taking last place in the league. So you could call that lucky because it seems like that's going to be the last season where we have that sort of punishment. But again, I still feel the same about it. And again, that's the last time I'm going to say dude on the show today. But I drafted Jerick McKinnon in the first round this year. Or not in the first round, but I drafted him early in the draft, okay? And I was counting on Jerick McKinnon to be at least a significant part of my fantasy team moving forward. And just because we had our fantasy draft, 4 days before it happened, I end up making a dumb decision that loses me a player and a draft pick in a league that is kind of important, and all because it's just random as shit. And now all of a sudden it's like I'm going to be playing catch up again to start the season. And I'll just say right now, if I take last, I will relegate myself from the league before I will do any of those dumb punishments that Mac mentioned before.
Yeah, I mean, that's unfortunately not an option for me because I've just gotten back into the taste of the league. So unfortunately, I'm kind of in a position where, I've had a taste of being kicked out of the league, Andrew. And you might talk all big and bad now, but
okay,
it stings a little bit when it comes around draft time and you check your inbox for that link and it's just not there this year.
Okay, and it might sound defiant, and so be it, but I'm just not a believer in humiliating friends for others' enjoyment. And you can say that I'm being Mr. Serious over here, but I don't understand the value of that. I just don't. Like, dude, you pay to be in the league and you lose that money. How is that not punishment enough?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Well, it doesn't sound like you're with me, bro, because you just said that you have to just take the punishment.
I do, because I don't want to leave the league this time.
I want
to stay in there.
I don't want to leave the league.
I'll just do it.
Will, I do not want to leave the league either. I'm just trying to say and prove to all these other people out there who think they know sports better than me, people in that group who also think they know sports better than you, that the whole thing is entirely random. And to punish someone for something that is entirely random makes little to no sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense. I'm not trying to make sense of it, man. I'm trying to stay in the league.
Understood. I'm trying to stay in the league too, dude, and I'm not counting on myself to take last 2 years in a row. But I did take last place last year, and yeah, I feel like Will Mosley's looking at me like you.
You're not planning on taking last again because you took Jerick McKinnon in the second round.
I don't think I took him in the second round. I think my first two picks were Odell Beckham and Kareem Hunt. It might have been the third round, though.
Excuse me.
And that's fine, dude. I took Jerick McKinnon in the third round because the dude was going to get a lot of touches. And you can say that I'm wrong to have done that now, but you're playing the result. All you're doing there is playing the result. Even if you thought that he was going to have a shitty year, there's no shittier year than having a guy tear his ACL before the first game of the season. And I would also say that a close second would be David Johnson hurting his wrist and going out for the season in the first play of the second half of the first game of the season. As Max said in the message, I have been really unlucky, and that's fine. I can sit here and bitch about it, but that's not what I'm bitching about. I'm just trying to point out that the whole thing is random, and I don't think that we should be punishing people for things that are random.
Welcome to week 2 from the Nosebleeds podcast, where we talk at part 2 at length about how random fantasy football is.
Okay, I'm sorry. We can move on if you want to move on. That's really all I have to say.
No, I'm with you. It's a really random game, and I think that's what brings a lot of interest and a lot of fun for people who are interested in the humiliation is the fact that it's so random, and it does feel like truly that you're paying to get a chance to win, and then you're not like that's not lost money because you're paying to play the game in general. So that's lost money in general unless you win. So for some people, that's not enough thrill for it, and you need a little bit of extra kick if you're on the back end of the league to keep playing at the end of the year. And for those people, that's all fine. That doesn't mean it's not random, but I think that the randomness of the league adds to that fun and excitement and little jolt that you get when you do have to worry about that over your shoulder. The fact that it's like, yeah, well, I might have to go clean this guy's apartment because I'm second to last with 3 weeks left, but actually also second place might end up cleaning his apartment if he just bombs out the last 3 games.
Put it up on the poll, please, at _ the Nosebleeds. Are you down with humiliation in fantasy sports? I'm a pretty stern no here, I have to say. I mean, I get what you're saying, Will. I really do. But, all right, Mac, I'm interested to get your opinion here because you've been at the top of the league and you've also done poorly a couple of years. Never taken last, but you've done poorly 1 year at least.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you think that you did more in the year that you won than you did in the year where you did poorly in the league?
No. I think I got as random goes, I felt super lucky the first time ever entering the league, and I just beat the shit out of everyone that year. The next year, not so hot, and then the year after that, I won again. So I've kind of been up and down, and I am not a fan of humiliation. I never joined a frat. I never did any of that hazing, but yeah, I don't know. There are some things I would do as long as it doesn't involve humiliation. Like one of them was buy a kid a dinner. And I think I would, as long as it's not like some ridiculous like restaurant, I would buy someone a dinner for being last.
I agree with that. No, I mean, I agree with that. I get what you're saying. But hey, as Will Mosley said, you are listening to From the Nosebleed Sports Podcast. My name is Andrew Levin. Please hit us up on Twitter at _ the Nosebleeds and check us out on SoundCloud. Go to the search bar, hit From the Nosebleeds Sports Podcast. That is where you will find us. We're the podcast with the cool logo with the nose bleeding, which makes a lot of sense if you think about it. But anyway, it is fantasy football season, and it is football season, and there are a lot of big NFL stories to get to. Something that I saw today that I'm sort of interested to get your thoughts on is the Steelers, Le'Veon Bell has still not reported, right? In a week where a lot of other stars got paid big money. Will Mosley's boy, Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Donald, a ton of guys out there making huge, huge change this past week, and yet Le'Veon Bell has not showed up to sign his franchise tenure yet.
Yeah, dude, it's kind of wild. like everyone, I think even Shefty reported that he was expected to report on Labor Day. And you know something's up if Shefty's wrong, because that dude doesn't miss at this time of the year. And so him missing on this and everyone thinking that he was going to report today is just, I mean, at the end of the day, he's still going to play. I don't think he's going to sit out a whole season. I don't think he's going to sit out the maximum amount of games that he can with still completing his salary or whatever. I think it is he has to play like 8 games or something like that. But I don't see him sitting out a full half season because of contract negotiations. Unfortunately, like we've talked about, that's just how the position goes right now, whether we agree with it or whether we don't. And he's kind of in a position where the league's not going to change their feelings on paying a running back by the time he's out of his prime. They might change in the next couple of years, but not by the time Le'Veon Bell's out of his prime. And for that reason alone, I don't see him sitting out a full year, because I think that he's smart enough to realize that probably some team's going to probably pay him a little too much next year when he's leaving for as long as he wants. And the Steelers are going to still get one of the best running backs in the league when it comes down to it. It just, obviously, I mean, if Jerick McKinnon wouldn't have been going this past week, then you'd still have a running back, Andrew. So maybe it's good that Le'Veon's sitting out.
I mean, I just got off a long text.
Oh my gosh. No, I love it. I love it. You're so into that fantasy league right now, man. I can just see it running.
Well, I'm trying. It's the second fantasy league, which the guys who we invited to the first fantasy league 15 minutes ago have all joined. So at least we know they're on the ball.
Oh my gosh, Alec, you're ridiculous.
Well, I will argue this. In the case of Le'Veon Bell, my guess would be that he either sits out for an entire year or sees some money coming this year. And that's because we've seen the market be reset at 4 different positions this year. Aaron Rodgers reset the quarterback market. Odell Beckham Jr. reset the wide receiver market. Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack reset not only the defensive end and D-tackle markets, but the market for defensive players in general. And I don't know why that wouldn't happen for a running back as well.
I mean, because he's kind of dispensable, right? I mean, this is the thing, right? That's kind of like what Will was saying with Jerick McKinnon. I think the position is more interchangeable than some of the other ones. And, I mean, those guys take such a beating. Obviously, it goes without saying. I mean, that's sort of the main reason that we always talk about. But aside from that, Le'Veon is a premier talent, and I sort of agree with you, Alec, that if we're taking players on an individual basis, player to player, it's confusing to me that he hasn't been paid yet, given his value. If you rank them all in a spectrum, who's the most valuable player in the league? Would we agree that Le'Veon's a top 10 guy on that list, defense and offense? Because I would put him at top 10. And so if you agree with that, it's sort of confounding that his team hasn't invested any in him long term. I mean, Will Mosley talked about it a couple weeks ago, man. If you lock him down, you're potentially locking down a future Hall of Famer for 4 or 5 years. That's huge for a franchise in the league. Huge. And they already have Antonio Brown. So they would have 2 unbelievably dynamic players on their offense. And the Khalil Mack story, man, is just incredible. Like, I certainly didn't see that coming at all, but one of the more Bears things that the Bears could do, right? Let's just go out and find the best linebacker and give him all our money.
Yeah. I mean, it's not gonna make them good. It's not gonna make them contenders over my Packers. But what it is going to do is make me really annoyed, because correct me if I'm wrong, but Mac's contract is covered for, all of the time that Aaron Rodgers just signed his contract. So pretty much I have to see that dude run around after my Hall of Fame quarterback all the time. And that's going to be really hard to watch, even though he is going to hopefully suck all the money away from that team and make them just a defensive-minded team that can't really get past anybody anymore.
Yeah, and to Will's point, I think when you talk about the money that you're putting into a defensive end who you can probably just run away from, right? But that must mean that the Bears think that they are a contender. If you're going to trade away 2 first-round picks and you're going to put that type of money into it, means that you think that Mitch Trubisky is a player you can win a Super Bowl with, and you're a contender now.
Why would they think they're a contender now with just that? Only that is their latest transaction when they've been shit the past few years. Getting Khalil Mack now puts them over the edge. That doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, from my understanding, it would mean that they probably thought they were close to being a contender or were already a contender without him. But you don't trade away two first-round picks if you don't think that those first-round picks aren't going to be worth the player you're getting immediately. And that's a gigantic haul. Kudos to them for getting a second in 2020, though.
But do you think it's more about Chicago thinking they're a contender or Oakland realizing that they're not yet? Because, I mean, I feel like this whole signing really was more surprising to me on the side that we saw, like, one of the best defensive ends on a team that last year people were projecting to win the AFC and go to the Super Bowl and all these great things with Derek Carr and Amari Cooper and Crabtree and all these guys. And they had Khalil Mack on the defensive side, and then they were bringing in Gruden, and it was their time. And now they're not giving the money to the best defensive player who's led the AFC in sacks for the last 2 seasons. Like that's the type of – we're talking about like not giving away Le'Veon Bell and signing him to a long-term deal as a possible Hall of Famer. Like that dude is – Khalil Mack is on the way to being – like him and Von Miller are there. Those are the 2 young dudes who are looking at going through their prime right now, going into it. And I think giving away one of those players really speaks volumes to them just not thinking they have it, and Chicago just being the place that they were able to, finesse 2 picks from.
Okay, very quick alternative theory. Similar, but I think that John Gruden got signed for 10 years, $100 million. It's very easy to get fired 4 years into that contract if you're perceived to have underperformed for 3 years. Sell away good assets, bring in first-round draft picks, make it look like you're rebuilding, even though I still think they've got some significant talent on the team. You can go 9-7 for 2 years and still have 3 years more of slack on your leash.
Yeah, I see where you're going with that. I mean, either way, it's just there's huge things going on that I don't think anyone really saw coming this season, which is just, it adds another wrench 1 week, not even 4 days away from, the kickoff of NFL football again.
Yeah, absolutely. Eagles Falcons on Thursday night. But you are listening to From the Nosebleeds Sports Podcast. Excuse my mispronunciation. We'll be right back. Sorry about that.
That was rough, but I think I think it was always going to be rough.
What was rough?
I just felt like the whole segment was rough. But we just started.
I feel like we settled into it. I feel like we started a bit hectic, going everywhere, but I feel like there at the end we, besides my bad, I didn't even see your hand up there for a second when I cut you off. But I mean, I think other than that, we did a pretty good job of settling in there on the back half of the segment.
I disagree with that. I thought the whole thing was pretty solid, actually. I didn't really think there were any glaring issues there.
Yeah, no, I didn't think there was anything bad. I just thought at the beginning, obviously, we weren't on a line, but nothing wrong. On the other hand, guys, I'm gonna fucking dominate our fantasy league one.
Have you been drafting?
Yeah. I've been drafting the entire time we've been talking.
Are you the only one drafting? I'm sure everyone else is on auto draft.
I had the first pick of the draft, I think.
I had the second. Yeah, you took Gurley, I took Le'Veon Bell. But I have Cam Newton, Devontae Adams, Demaryius Thomas, Le'Veon Bell, Joe Mixon, Gronkowski, and Lamar Miller right now. Yeah. I'm just, yeah. Well, it's because I can do shit like purposefully draft like people later because I can see that all of y'all are gonna, auto draft.
Mm-hmm.
So it helps my ability to just let y'all fucking auto draft, and I can like pick. I can see where like exactly what pick is gonna end up with me.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like my team.
I haven't even really kept up with what anyone else has gotten.
I've got Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, Keenan Allen, Todd Gurley, Kenyon Drake, Jimmy Graham, T.Y. Hilton's my flex currently. Let's see. I will say I do think Paul is drafting. He lost his phone, so he hasn't gotten Paul. He's
Paul G's team.
Yep, I think that's him drafting it. Yeah, I know for a fact that he lost his phone, so he hasn't gotten.
Should I get Corey? Who should I get? I got Chris Hogan as an opportunity. Josh Gordon.
Oh, you're drafting right now.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go Chris Hogan. You can't go wrong with a white, New England receiver, And he's just sitting on my bench at this point.
Yeah, you know what? I don't trust Keenan Allen.
I don't think we are, but guys, by the way.
Oh, okay. Cool. Where are we going?
We were just talking about the draft that's happening. Because
I just drafted Josh Gordon.
I was about to say you're back in the fucking draft. It's your pick again, asshole.
Nice.
All right. Where are we going, guys? We can go college football season opened up and everything that went on with that I didn't watch.
I was actually kind of surprised how hard Miami got their ass beat last night. That was a game.
Made that save. Let's do that.
I was super surprised.
Let's go at it, because I wasn't at all.
Well, okay. So having lived in Miami, but it doesn't take an expert to know that Miami's always going to have athletes, right? So I was really high on them going into last night, and I have to say it was almost one of those games where I was like, let's tweet out a pick for everyone, for entertainment purposes. But anyway, dude, I gotta stop saying dude, fuck. I was very high on Miami going into the season. I think they have athletes all over the field. All four of those defensive linemen are going to be drafted, I think, possibly in the first round of the NFL draft next year. Everyone loves to talk about Clemson's defense, but Miami's defense is just as good. And that, even though they got their ass beat last night, kind of showed. I mean, the question mark was always going to be the offense and the quarterback position. And everything that I had heard this summer, just reading about like the Canes and things going on around them, suggested that the quarterback was going to be a lot better this year. And that was certainly not the case last night. And for all intents and purposes, their season's kind of over now.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to be that guy who just continually asks all night, like, is it actually the other way around? But, dude, LSU.
Oh, they were awesome.
So scary because they finally look like they have a quarterback, and dude, they look so scary. The way that, I didn't necessarily expect Miami to be dominated in the way that they did, or in the way they were, but LSU just came out and looked like a whole nother level from what they've looked like in recent years. And maybe it's that extra fire coming from their coach every week or something. But They are intense this year.
So I was also surprised by the fact that Miami lost. I really thought that coming in, they hadn't graduated a ton of talent. Malik Rozier is supposed to be, a pretty solid player. And going into the game, or going into this season even, I don't think Ed Orgeron's a great coach. I feel like he was LSU kind of, satisfying LSU fans who are already pissed off with the whole Les Miles situation. Surprised. At the same time, though, I think it's pretty clear that one, LSU will always have a first-round talent running back, and two, they will always have first-round talent D-backs, and that was more clear than ever.
I mean, is there a team that has more NFL-ready skill positions? Like, I understand Alabama has maybe the linemen and everything, but I mean, you look at Odell, you look at some of the receivers, some of the running backs, some of the defensive backs that have come out of there that have instantly been NFL-ready impact players. But Patrick Peterson, there's so many – the list is just so long. There's so many guys who have come out of an LSU special skill position and immediately impacted the NFL game. And I don't know if there's another school that can say that they have that many.
Yeah, despite a quarterback. Never a quarterback, right?
Yeah, and that's the amazing thing. And, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, you look at the teams like with Odell and some of the great receivers that were on that team, and you look back and you're like, wait, they couldn't put together an offense that could actually score. It just doesn't make any sense. And maybe it was a little bit of Les Miles, or maybe it's just something down there in Louisiana, but man, they are good at football.
They're really good. Yeah, I was very impressed with LSU last night. I will say, I mean, the whole thing kind of seemed like an LSU home game. I never wanted to be the guy who's just going to make that as an excuse, but it seemed to me like there were a lot more LSU people there than Miami people there for a neutral site game. And I'm not really sure how that works either, because I always thought they had to split those tickets evenly. But, maybe that's all just BS. I mean, yes, LSU has athletes all over the field, but so too does Miami. And I know, Alec, and you love to talk about these blue chippers, right? And Miami is always, always at the high end in terms of roster percentage of guys who have been very, very highly touted. They have athletes at all three levels of the defense. And as Alex said, we sort of thought that Malik Rozier was going to be a serviceable collegiate quarterback this year. And last night, he didn't look like that at all. He displayed an inability to throw the ball down the field with any accuracy whatsoever. And last year, the long passes were sort of the ones that helped them along and helped them to become, the darling of college football for those 11 weeks where they didn't lose. But they did lose their last 3 games of the year, and it seems like that trend is legit. Like, it's going to continue this season. And I mean, after last night, I certainly don't expect them, to do much. I hate to say that, but they looked real. I get what you're saying, Will. Like, is it more about LSU being good or Miami being bad? But Miami looked pretty bad last night.
Do you really not think that? I mean, I feel like we've seen the past few years these teams lose early in the season, and then be able to pull it together by the end of the year, winning out the rest of their season and being able to make these high-end bowls or these into the playoffs even, like with Oklahoma or some of the other teams that have made it in there as well. Why couldn't Miami do that? And I will say, real quick before I get into that, I thought Miami looked great their first drive or their second drive, where it was clear that even the quarterback still wasn't throwing well. Their wide receivers were literally catching everything and had Michael Irving on the sideline just getting hype as fuck, like jumping up and down, jumping on the players. And they looked great. The whole crowd was in it. And I just had no idea. I was so surprised that they seemed so excited to play that they got deflated by mid first quarter, they just like went down so fast. LSU looks so much better. It was just weird to see Miami deflate like just like that out of nowhere. But yeah, as I was saying earlier, do you guys think that they can pull it together by the end of the year, or do you think they're actually done?
I think they're done, man, and I think that speaks to you. I think that your attitude towards Miami can make it after losing in the first week of the season comes from you being an Ohio State fan and watching your team lose to my team, the Virginia Tech Hokies, in the first week of the season just a few years ago and squeak into the playoffs. Like I think that's where you're coming from, and I think something that you're not giving credit to is the fact that Ohio State, while Miami does as well, Ohio State carries a lot of clout when it comes to that decision of who you're going to put into the bowl game, of who you're going to put in. And I think given that same situation, Miami doesn't get that leeway that Ohio State got that year. Ohio State got in that year on a lot of controversy, and that's really one of the only teams. And I think that we've shown that the best way to get into the college football playoffs, schedule as many crappy teams as you can and put together a great schedule or a great resume when you look at numbers and win your conference.
Yeah, I used to be the type of person who really shit on college programs for taking a cupcake game to start their season, and now I totally understand it. Because kind of like I said before, Miami thought what they were doing was putting a really good opponent on their schedule to start their season to give them that strength, because they are going to be favored still probably in the remainder of their games, or at least in most of them. So they went into the season thinking they had a real chance to make the playoff, and instead what they've done to themselves now is pretty much take them out of the race at the very beginning of it. And so teams like Clemson that play Furman, and I know Ohio State, forgive me for not remembering their opponent, but Mac, I know they had a game that was probably going to be easily winnable. That's something that's kind of makes sense. Like, you don't get a preseason in college football, and that matters when it's 18 to 22-year-old kids out there.
That's true. A lot of times they will do some sort of inter-school type of scrimmage against, typically it's a 1AA team who doesn't matter, right? And it's not going to count for anything. But there can, and I've only ever been in the stands, but I can only imagine that the difference between a closed scrimmage or even an open scrimmage where at, some of the bigger schools, 5,000 to 10,000 fans show up is small potatoes in comparison to 100,000 screaming fans. And when you're an 18-year-old, gotta be super intimidating. And that's the tough part about college football, I think, is that unless you have certain intangibles, one is probably an interesting quarterback, doesn't even have to be great, like an interesting quarterback, a lockdown defense. You are one of the premier teams in a major conference, and then you have no more than 2 losses. If you lose the first week, right, you really, really have at best one more mistake you can make.
Yeah. I mean, you only – it's a tough thing with this, like the way the season's set up, definitely, and the nerves, obviously, at the beginning of the season. And that's the argument for all of these teams on the back end, is being able to say that, oh, well, we look at the team we are now. That team deserves to be in the college football playoff, not the team we were back then, because, all these injuries happen. And, of course, you lose a game here and there. But one thing I think that I noticed from this first weekend that stuck out to me, that if it doesn't stick out in the minds of every Division I college athletic director when they're scheduling their first week of football games, is rule number 1 for scheduling a cupcake team: App State is not a cupcake team.
No. And
stop thinking they're a cupcake team. They've done this to a big school before. They almost did it to another one. If you were an athletic director of a Division I college right now, listening out there, you listen to my words. Do not schedule Appalachian State unless you want to use it as a statement game.
It's such a good point. And it's something that teams have done for 5 years, over 5 years now, and it makes no sense to me. No sense at all. Speaking of Miami, they went and played at App State last year, and immediately when I saw that game on their schedule, I was like, what are you thinking? I mean, what are you thinking? Yeah, they've been a Division I program for 15 years now, and they've really only been D1 for what, 3 or 4?
Yeah, it's something ridiculous, man. They are a beast unlike any other.
So, anyway, those were sort of my big takeaways from the opening weekend of college football. But you're Virginia Tech now playing, right, Will? As we speak?
They are right now, man, right now. And if ESPN would load on my other screen, I would be able to be watching right now. But alas, I'm giving you, the people, my full attention, even though, update, no, 90% of my attention. Virginia Tech's up 10-0. Let's get it.
Well, there you go. So a good start for them, but a just utterly terrible start for the Miami Hurricanes in a year where I actually thought they were going to have a chance to do really big things, and it doesn't look that way at all. But hey, a really, really strong win for LSU to start the season, right? And all of a sudden they go from, their coach being on the hot seat and being 25 in the country to everyone saying, they may have a really good team again. And why would you think otherwise? I mean, what a great breeding ground for football players.
Yeah, it's a place that just always has them. It's ridiculous to assume that they're not going to have them. And although, Alec, I agree with your point a little bit earlier about Ogeron probably not being the best in-game coach, I don't think that he has, the in-game skills to adjust like some of the great coaches or to be able to outthink or out-game plan anybody. But when you have that level of NFL-ready players on your roster and you can inspire them to go play the game that they love, that might be enough to win a college championship.
I agree with that. Yeah, they've got big bodies all over the field. And hey, Ed Orgeron may not be a good football coach, but he's got a great future, it seems like, in voice acting. Because I did not know what Ed Orgeron sounded like until probably midway through this offseason. Well, I sort of heard him before, but not nearly as much as I heard him this offseason. And that dude sounds more like what he does for a living than any person I could think of. Like, he sounds more like the Louisiana State football coach than anyone who has ever walked the face of this planet.
We need to get a Hard Knocks podcast version of just Ed Orgeron talking to his team.
Oh my gosh.
For like 4 hours straight.
The money that I would pay on pay-per-view to just listen to pay-per-listen, I guess I should say, to just Ed Orgeron. Dude, you give him anything, dude. Let him just read a Dickens novel. I don't care what it is. I want to hear that man just let words come out. It makes me happy in a way that very few things in sports do. That man talking.
Yeah, no, it's a brilliant thing for sports, and this is the beautiful part about college football, and I guess I'll wrap up my thoughts on the weekend by saying this is how beautiful is of a sport and of a season is college football, where in a program like LSU, where we see their games on all season and they're always in our face with being a great team, we get to go from having a coach who eats the grass of every field that he goes to the coach who possibly has the best voice in the history of college coaches. And it's just truly magic, man.
I'm just so happy it's back. It's just, I woke up excited, got to watch College Game Day. I'm so happy it's football season again.
For sure. I mean, how beautiful it is that football is back, and how beautiful it is to be listening to From the Nosebleeds podcast. We will be right back. Cool.
Should we do?
That was a good one.
So anyway, I have to cut out early tonight, and I do apologize about that. But I've got some things going on in my personal life, so I've actually got to head out of town here. But I will be around tomorrow night, and so if someone or anyone wants to just do like a really informal recording during the draft tomorrow, I am very much willing to do that. So please let me know, and I'll be by my phone. But unfortunately, I'm going to be attending a memorial service tomorrow down in Charleston. And it's kind of sudden, so the whole thing's a little bit much, and I do apologize. But trying to sort of get on the road sooner rather than later. So I'll be back by tomorrow night, and so please let me know if we're going to do something for the draft. I'd be more than willing to plug in any way that you guys need me to.
Yep.
Cool. Mac, I'll get my recording to you.
Okay.
All right, dude. Drive safe.
All right.
I think we need to keep going.
Yeah, no, we do.
Okay. I didn't know that he was leaving. I don't know if he talked about that earlier.
He spoke with me. He called me when he found out that he was going to have to go to this memorial service. I thought that he was going to mention something earlier in the show.
Yeah, that was news to me, but don't care. But we're not done yet. I hope.
No,
That's fine.
no, no, we still have plenty of time. I like the college.
When we get
football
off this, though, make sure you guys join the fantasy league.
Yeah, the only reason I hadn't is because I had our other draft pulled up and I was drafting through that.
No, that's
so
I'll be
I
right
don't want
back.
to disturb that.
I'll be right back.
But yeah, it's right now. It's me, Chad, Tyler, and Harrison
In the new league,
in the new league.
you, Chad, Tyler, and Harrison, and then you need me, Andrew, Mac, and who else?
Paul, Nick, Mac's brother. Right, there's 4 of us in it now. You, Andrew.
Ned, Nick, and Paul.
Yeah, would make 10.
So Ned, Nick, Paul, me, Mac, Andrew. Will that make 10 if we add 6 more?
Yeah.
Okay, hold up. Let me see if I'm already able to log into that league now. I just tried to sign in. Yeah. I played Paul week 1. Bro, my team, listen to what my team ended up being. So my team on our first version, Cam Newton, Devontae Adams, Demaryius Thomas, Le'Veon Bell, Joe Mixon, Gronkowski, Lamar Miller, Chris Hogan, Brandon Cooks, Alfred Morris, Ben Roethlisberger on the bench, Tyler Eifert on the bench, Harrison Butker is my kicker, Denver's defense, and then Pittsburgh's defense on the bench.
Wow.
Dude, I double drafted defenses.
I did double draft defenses because I have just a stupid amount of talent on my team. So at this point, screw it. I'll just have a really good defense on either of the bye weeks, or depending on who each team's playing.
You want to hear my team?
Yeah, that way I can look up Max.
I have. Are you joking me? And joking me.
Yeah, Mac, you actually have a decent team. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mac.
Alec, read your team, dude. I'm gonna look mine up.
Oh, so Drew, I think I read most of it already, but Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, Keenan Allen, Todd Gurley, Kenyon Drake, Jimmy Graham, T.Y. Hilton, Josh Gordon, Deion Lewis, Devin Funchess, Pat Mahomes, Ricky Seals-Jones, Matt Prater's my kicker, New Orleans and Baltimore my defenses.
Nice. Mac, you got Tom Brady, Odell Beckham, Stephon Diggs, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Chicago's tight end, Burton. Collins, Robinson II, Marshawn Lynch, Ryan Anderson, Marcus Mariota. Lutz is your kicker, and Minnesota and Green Bay defenses.
Jordan Reed's not a bad tight end.
No.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone ended up with all right teams because we only had 8 people.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I mean,
Okay.
everyone was naturally going to get a lot of good players. But I'll actually be really interested to see how this league ends up compared to our other league.
Yeah, we've kind of unwittingly created that just a league full of computers.
Yeah, which is dope. That is truly our test of how random fantasy is if I can win or come in last place in that league.
Yeah, plus you'll be the only guy on the waiver wire too. Did somebody just draft a better team? Actually, I might jump in on the waiver wire every once in a while.
No, it'll be fun to see how that league goes compared to the other two that are a little more paid attention to. But where do we want to go on topics wise? I know Mac, you said favorite or best live sporting events.
Yeah, that seems good to me.
I really like that conversation because
I brought it up the other week.
Yeah, I like it. Because it also kind of lends itself to something that I was thinking about the other day, which is like, how we talked about back in March, like as the end of March Madness was going on and the beginning of like the NBA playoffs and NHL playoffs and everything, and that time of year being the best compared to this time of the year where you have baseball postseason, NBA offseason, and the beginning of football season and the beginning of Champions League and all of that good stuff. I think that's a good conversation for like which one of those two seasons is actually the best. Because, in the moment, it's very easy to say each of them is better than the other one.
Yeah, I think
that's just something I was thinking about the other day. We don't have to go into that in depth tonight. But that was just something I was thinking about with this time of the year. But I do like the best live sporting events because, the U.S. Open and tennis is going on right now and college football being such a great environment.
Yeah, we're doing it's like top 5 you've been to kind of, right? Is that the
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or I mean that's the question, right? Because you can't have I don't know. My guess is that college football games, like rivalry college football games, are probably about as good as it gets. But we don't have big football up here, so the Harvard Yale game is the closest I get to that, and that is
that's fun.
Oh, that's awesome! Oh, that's definitely in there for me. But
that's what I think will make it a little bit interesting if we do that conversation. Is you might have college football on your top 5, but it might not be top because it's not, as big as it is down here, where it's definitely going to be in my top like 2 or 3 because I've been to Carolina Clemson my entire growing up.
Yeah.
Like I've swapped stadiums for like 8 straight years at one point in my life, going to each like game for 8 straight years, 4 at Carolina and 4 at Clemson.
See, and that's why I think this is a good conversation.
Yeah, I'm down for that. I do think that it's okay if you put something that you haven't been to in your top 5, because I think we can all lend ourselves to a situation. We watch enough sports and everything and have heard enough. And I think if you want to honor or like put something in because that it should be in there, I don't think that that's against it.
You could.
I mean, we can all do our,
you could preface like criteria. I really want to go to this, but I haven't.
I'm down with it. Are we doing it as a top 5 type thing?
I think so. It's tough to.
I think I think that conversation as a top 5 type of thing is going to be a little bit longer than our usual like top 5 topics, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's okay because it fits our time of year and our conversation and everything. And I feel like that's something that we can bounce around for a little while without dragging on our top 5s.
Yeah. And there's a reason. Yeah. So I brought this up originally. I've got a good entry in. I'm going to. So my number one sports event, I'm going to that on September 15th. So in 2 weeks.
Hold on.
And then I'm going to my number 2 the next Saturday. And then 2 weeks from that Saturday, I'm going to what will be one of my honorable mentions. So I've got a lot of live sporting events.
Okay, hold on. Pretty much, I kind of want you to say what you just said to get us into that conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Just hold on and say that again. I'm going to bring us back in and introduce like Twitter handle and everything, Facebook, all that stuff. And I'll run through that, and then I'll kick it to you about like we're going to have a conversation about, something that, fits or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We ready to roll?
Yeah.
Hey everybody, how's everything going? This is From the Nosebleeds sports podcast you're listening to. You can find us on SoundCloud. Just type in the search bar From the Nosebleeds sports podcast. If you want to find us on Twitter, you can find us at _the nosebleed. Nosebleeds with an S, excuse me. And thanks for listening today. We did have one of our co-hosts here, Andrew, step out here for our final segment. So he's not going to be with us here to close us out, but he's with us in spirit. Might pop in for that fantasy draft, a little segment here at the end, maybe tomorrow, depending. But we're still here, the three of us, good friend Alec Uecki, Mackie Young, and your guy right here, Will Mosley, all joining you to talk about something that's, naturally coming up in a lot of conversations here with football season coming back around, us talking about how great of an environment it is, how great of a time of year it is. We got the U.S. Opening happening right now in tennis. We got the FedEx Cup playoffs going on in golf. And there's so many great live sports that so many people care a lot about. So Alec naturally pitches us this question of what's the best? Not what's the best sport, not what is your favorite or anything. What's the best live sporting event that you can go to? And I mean, the guy who pitched the question, I'd like to hear from first. So Alec, where did this come from? How did you get us on this? And where are you taking us with it?
So this came to me because I'm going to probably at least 3 of my top 5 in the next 2 months. One of the ones I'm going to, I've never been to before, so I can't tell you where exactly it's going to land, but I would say it's at the very least an honorable mention. And it's one of those things that I love. And I know that TV has kind of been stealing fans from the games, but I love going to a good sports game. And I think that's one of the places where I really, aside from playing them, fell in love with sports. It's just the atmosphere you get from a stadium, from the nosebleeds, of just getting to attend an event.
And that, people, that's how you plug your show. Seamless. What a job right there.
Thank you. That's why they brought me on, guys. That's why they brought me on. So without further ado, my number 5, and I don't know if this is something that you guys have been to or get a lot of, just because I'm in a different part of the country, but that's got to be a good college hockey game. We've got the Bean Pot up here. I live right in between Yale and Quinnipiac, who actually played for the national championship my freshman year of college. So I went to one of the best of 3 games there at Quinnipiac, which is pretty crazy when you have like a 5-mile stretch that divides 2 schools playing for the national championship. It's wicked intense fans, but it's also small stadiums, super enclosed, and there's not too much of a show. And that's what I love about it, is it's, the sound of the puck and guys skating on the ice. You can hear players swearing at each other. It's pretty awesome. My number 4, and this is just based off of things that I've heard, because I haven't been to one, but I'm going on October 6th, is a Premier League soccer game or a high-level soccer game in Europe.
What Premier League soccer game are you going to, pray tell?
I know Tottenham's playing on the 6th when I fly into London, and I'm trying to get tickets to that game specifically because I prefer Tottenham. However, my whole goal is that while I'm going to Europe from the 6th to the 15th in October, if you want to find me, but I don't feel like I can go to the UK specifically without getting a chance to see a Premier League game. So that is something I'm going to make sure I get a chance to do. And it's one of those things where, in the 80s and early 90s, they had hooligans, which are gangs where people would literally kill each other over how much they loved football teams. And I think it's even worse in South America. And call me crazy, but that sounds a little bit amazing. I love some insane fandom. My number 3 is a great college football game. And full disclosure, the best college football game I've ever been to, highest ranked teams, was UConn Rutgers, the one year that they were both ranked and UConn went to a bowl game. However,
when the fuck was that?
Every year, it was like 2009. It was when Ray Rice was at Rutgers.
Okay.
But every year, I go to the Harvard-Yale, football game. And that is, if you've been there, it is an event that has a mind and a tradition all of its own. And especially if you are a diehard fan of one of the teams, like I am a Yale fan, it's one of my favorite places to be. My number 2, and these are going to be team specific for my next 2 because it just is how I am, is a Philadelphia Eagles football game, specifically against the Giants. There is nothing. Just so our listeners know, I love to hate other teams, and that is probably what made me such a good Eagles fan. By the time I was 5, I love to hate the Giants and the Cowboys. And my first memory of an Eagles game is when I was 9. My godfather took me, and he and I are sitting there in these pretty nice seats, not the nosebleeds, but pretty great seats. And this old man stands up behind me and hurls a beer bottle at a Giants fan sitting 2 rows up. And 9-year-old me was like, this is it. This is us. We've met our people. If you want to talk about just like pure anger and love, that's a Philadelphia Eagles football game. What's up?
So you were born to be a Philadelphia Eagles fan. If as a child, your first instinct when you see a grown man hurl a bottle at another grown man because of the team he's cheering for, if your first instinct is that was the right move, you're built to be an Eagles fan. And
yeah,
I'm not saying that's something. I'm not saying it's necessarily good, necessarily bad. I think it does speak worlds to your argument in how that environment plays compared to how that environment sits on my list because it's not Philadelphia. It's not a place where people throw giant tubs of mustard like 4 stories down on other people's heads. Yes, that's a real story for you people out there that want to look that up. That did happen at a Philadelphia Eagles game. And yeah, I'm sure it's really intense, but man, oh man, that's a unique type of environment and it is very team specific. And I'm glad that you said it.
Within the NFL, even it's very team specific. And so just to add to that, Premier League game in early October, I'm actually I have sideline passes to the Eagles-Colts game in late September. So I'm very interested to see if that's going to kind of change my perspective, maybe even to the better. My number 1 is specific to the team and the stadium that you're watching the event in, but is not specific to the team that you're playing. And that is, it's actually specific to the time of year as well. and that is a summer afternoon game at the beautiful Fenway Park. If you've never been there, I think you should go there. If you don't like baseball, I think you should go there. But I can tell you that there is no better sports atmosphere than getting hammered on the tee as you ride into Boston, walking into Fenway with a $9 student ticket, sitting in the bleachers, getting drunk with your friends, cheering for the Sox, win, lose, or draw. It is, and this is as somebody who's never played an inning of organized baseball. I want to reiterate that fact. It is my favorite sports events I've ever been to. I watched my little brother win a national championship from the front row 2 months ago. I would trade that for a Sox game.
If only you had gone third and we could end the show on that right there. Alec
I hope Colin is
trade watching his little brother win the national championship for getting trashed in the bleachers of a Sox game off a $9 student ticket. That is wow. How do you follow that up, Matt?
I know Colin feels incredibly loved right now. But I'm taking mine kind of a similar route. I mean, I think our favorite games are ones for the teams that we root for. So for me, I think my number 5 is just going to be a Blue Jackets hockey game. I think having an indoor sport, having like the performance of it, having the show around it, for as small of a city as Columbus is, the Blue Jackets games actually do get a decent crowd. The arena is really nice. It's pretty new, and they've been pretty decent the last few years. And they're a young team. They're fast, and it's just been fun to go to their games. My number 4 is kind of I've only been to one, but I will never forget it. When I saw LeBron James play his rookie year in Cleveland, that was, you could hate me, love me, whatever, but that was just like, it's an awesome feeling. And I like to know that I saw him play his rookie year in the Cleveland Cavaliers uniform. It's like, I think that's just pretty cool. And then the other one's
relatable for all you listeners out there that want to go experience our favorite events. If you want to travel back in time to 2004 and watch a first year LeBron James.
Well, I think just watching anyone who's the top of their game play at any sport, fuck off, dude. Watching anyone at the top of their sport play that well is fun. Watching the best. And then the other ones are all nostalgic again. Growing up, I used to go to a ton of Ohio State basketball games. Both my grandfathers had season tickets, both great seats, and they both passed on. But I just remember that is how we kindled our how we just fed our relationship and got to learn a lot about each other, and our love for Ohio State basketball. So I will always love going to those games. Still cheer loudly. But yeah, it just meant a lot to me growing up, and will always mean a lot. And then another one, as I love going, similar to Alec, I love going to a baseball game. I've been to Fenway, I've been to Yankee Stadium, but my team is Cincinnati Reds. And my dad's a pretty quiet guy. Means business most of the time, as I think Alec and Will both know. Pretty direct individual, but when he's cheering for his team, he gets up and out and he's ready to go. And my dad loves baseball. That is his sport for sure. So it's fun to go to those games with him, have a beer, shoot the shit, and watch our favorite team play. And then I think we all saw this one coming. My number 1. No better, oh, dude, gets me chills thinking about it. No better sporting event is, I know Alec had the game, but I have the big game, buddy, and that's Ohio State, Michigan, and that is the best sporting event I've ever been to, and that's definitely because of my fandom towards Ohio State, but pretty much probably until I went to college and I started moving out of Ohio is when I realized I couldn't tell everyone that was wearing a Michigan memorabilia that they suck. I remember being in like California, Colorado, New England, seen someone with a Michigan shirt on and not knowing a single thing about them and just saying straight to their face that they suck. And I stopped that when I went to college. But it was I was born a Columbus, Ohio State fan. Yeah, that's the best sporting event in my opinion. And now on to Big Willie. What do you got for us, bud?
Couple similar ones. One, I'm surprised that got left out by Mac a little bit, but we'll get around to that. Number 5 might be surprising to some people out there that it's not higher on my list. Obviously, given my love of the sport and how intently I keep up with it, but I do have a memory when I was a kid. I got to go to an Atlanta Braves playoff game, the night game, and just sitting in the bleachers, looking up, night sky. Everyone's out there drunk, excited. You get the tension of the playoffs, but no one's like angry, worried like you are in some other sports. It's still a happy, hopeful in baseball, which doesn't make any sense. Maybe it lends itself to the whole you can save yourself in the ninth inning thing. But there's something about that environment that has stuck in my head, and it's probably the only reason that I keep up with baseball as little as I still do. Because there's something about that live aspect of MLB baseball that can't be replicated. It's not about, I liked the word you used, Alec, earlier, atmosphere. It's not even about the game for me. It's about the atmosphere. It's about shoving 4 nasty loaded hot dogs down your face and slugging down 13 freaking light beers while you're sitting in the bleachers and waiting for one good hit that's going to change the game. And there's something magical about it. Number 4, coming from Wofford, big basketball school. Won our SoCon a couple times, made it into March Madness. College basketball rivalry games. Anytime you're in the student section, I do think that is a stipulation. You can't be sitting in the parent section or anything. I think that changes it. But there's a reason why the Cameron Crazies at Duke are known by everyone. There's a reason why you have all these great chants in college basketball, and you have all these insane moments where fans are able to get in players' heads more than almost any other sport, because it may be the sport where players can hear you the clearest in moments. And for that environment of sitting in there and cheering against the other team and shaking the bar of the rail that you're trying to keep you from being on the court when there's 100 people pushing against your back cheering on for the same thing. That is something that I remember from college and remember from visiting, Clemson and other games like that, other schools games. That is an intense environment. Number 3, Alec, I'm going to go kind of similar to you. When I got to go abroad, I didn't get to a Champions League game, but I got to a Europa League game, which was dope. The energy in those buildings, even in the Europa League, is scary. So I can't imagine what a Premier League or a Champions League game would be like on that level. So that locks in an easy number 3 for me. Number 2, this is where it got hard, man. Something near and dear to my heart got pushed down to number 2 for probably the first time in my life in the past year. And that's a college football rivalry. I always have said that's the best environment in the world. Off air a couple minutes ago, I mentioned to Mac and Alec how I spent, I think, about 7 or 8 years consistently going back and forth to Clemson and Carolina for the rivalry game. every year because it's just something that in South Carolina you grow up with, kind of like the Ohio State, Michigan, those two, Army, Navy, Auburn, Alabama, Texas, USC. There's the great rivalries in college football sports, and that environment cannot be replicated. There's something about people's ties to their college teams and the history that goes along with it that will literally start just wars if taken too far. So that's something that, you know, has already been mentioned, but it got pushed down to number 2 because of something Matt got to experience over the past year. I got to experience over the past year. And it's something that, like European soccer, a lot of people do not get the chance to experience. And it's something that I wish they could. And that is a Super Rugby match, or more specifically for me, the New Zealand All Blacks playing against the British and Irish Islands Lions in rugby. I got lucky enough to work one of those matches while Mac and I were living over in New Zealand over the past year. And luckily, all of the vendors shut down at halftime, so I got to move into the stands for free. And that is not only something that is as innate in people's blood as their college football teams, but it doesn't happen every year. It only happens every 12 years that they get to come play that tour in New Zealand. And because of that fact, because there are people who wait for 12 years to go to all 4 matches or 3 matches that they play, that is something that I truly wish everyone could get to experience. And that's rounding out my top 5.
And a side note to Will's comment, I didn't get to go to the game. I did not have the privilege of working at it or getting a ticket, but I did watch it at a bar, and I then slept in my car illegally parked in an alley, but that car was probably on the other side of the city from the stadium, and I could hear everyone partying from miles away. The entire city was erupting because the All Blacks won. And I remember at like 5 a.m, people walking by my car still screaming, yelling their All Blacks chants and pounding on my car door from the other side of the city when, it wasn't anywhere near it. But the entire city, the entire country got behind that. So that I was, even though I didn't attend that, it was definitely something to at least be a part of, be in the same city as.
Yeah, and I believe you got to go to a Super Rugby match while we were down there.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and it's something that I feel is very kin to the European soccer being on this as a great sporting event, and it's something that I truly believe that everyone out there, I hope you get the chance to experience an environment like that, where here in America, obviously, we care a lot about college football, college basketball, NFL, NBA, and our sports. And it is an eye-opening experience for you to get to go to another country and experience how they look at their sports and how they view Premier League soccer in England. It is one of the harshest and most brutal things to cheer for. And a lot of Americans take our rivalries very seriously, but I would not dare step in between a Manchester and a United and a Manchester City argument. And I've gotten between plenty of Carolina and Clemson fans. And I think that that says something there, is they take it to another level over there, because it is truly just a sport that we don't have as much passion for, but they do. And so they take it very seriously, and it's something that is a great time to watch. And Alec, I'm sure you're going to have a blast on your trip over there, and especially getting to go to, your Barclays game. No, excuse me. Yeah, we're going to the Premier League, not the Champions League, correct?
Premier League.
Okay, so hope that's going to be a blast. You'll have to keep everybody updated on, what you're going to end up going to, where we're sitting. Hope to get some updates. Maybe we'll see you out there catching your face on TV sometime.
Hopefully, I'd love to be famous in England or the U.S. But
hey, that's what we're working for here, man. I've always said you got a face for radio, so that's why we're doing this. We're just out here trying to get famous. You all out there who are listening are helping us do it, and we really do appreciate it. Go out there this fall, experience some of these great environments. Premier League starting up. Champions League will be here soon. We got college football rolling in. NFL is coming up this weekend, Thursday night. We get to all watch that and get all excited. My Virginia Tech Hokies still playing right now, which is always exciting. So go out there, experience some of those live sporting events, sit in some nosebleeds, get the atmosphere, get the experience, and listen to this podcast a little more. Send in how you feel in the nosebleeds, and we'll talk about how we feel in there. Because it's all about, just getting out and going to those fun events, getting to watch sports that we all love watching, and, getting away from the day-to-day of life, which that's what sports are really here for. So that's always fun.
Couldn't have said it better.
All right. Well, we got any last words, guys? Alec, any word you want to give us an update and a last-minute lowdown on exactly how this draft is going to play out by the time the people are listening to this?
The draft is going to be at 8:45 tomorrow, and I'm not changing the time. And if Will and I are
Tuesday, September 4th, by the way,
at 8:45,
we're recording on Monday.
Tuesday, September 4th.
By the look on Mac's face, we are not going to have a fun conversation when we get off air because it looks like there may be a problem once I let him know that was September 4th.
No.
Okay.
It's my mom's birthday.
Ho! All right, so we're going to wrap this up here, guys. We're going to let Mac get on the phone, call Mama Young, and tell her happy birthday for everybody. Everybody out there, wish Mama Young a belated birthday by the time you're listening to this. Shout out to Mac's mom. Without her, we couldn't have him doing all of the work that he does here. So we need that. Alec, thanks for bearing with us at the beginning and, fixing this whole fantasy league situation. Max, thanks for all the hard work you do and everything you do here. And y'all out there listening, thank you for listening to this and giving us an opportunity to do what we love. So without further ado, I think that is this week's episode of From the Nosebleeds. Anything else, guys?
I got nothing.
All right. See you guys next week. Love you guys.